CBS Sports presents the National Football League.
Austin backpedals. Takes it out to 26. Here comes Tavon Austin. Down the sideline. Austin stays it goes. Takes it all the way for a Rams touchdown. Here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10. Inside the 5. And the Chargers win the game. Short drop. Quick throw. Left side. Intercepted. D-Son. Touchdown. Al Harris. Game-winning touchdown. Green Bay Packers.
You're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
Follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.
And check out every episode of the show at basicallysports.tumblr.com.
Now here's your hosts, Zach,
Greg, Mike.
And you're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
We move on to the National Football Conference, the NFC. We'll start in the East as we did in the AFC, and the most talked about division of football year in and year out, no matter how good it actually is, has some pretty good teams in it this year, as it did last year, and I think this is going to be a pretty competitive one, top to bottom. Last year you had the Cowboys, who were the breakout team in that division, 13-3. Dak Prescott's rookie year, same with Ezekiel Elliott. Those two powered that team to new heights and, reinvigorated that team.
Great offensive line.
Yeah, sent Tony Romo up to the broadcast booth for the rest of his career. But
or until somebody needs a quarterback, as Jay Cutler has shown.
True. Now, the Cowboys were just such a sound football team. They really were. 13-3 was no mirage. They were a really good football team, I thought.
Well, the big question mark for them last year going into the season was the defense. If the defense would be okay, they would be pretty solid. And the defense played, I think, way above expectations. And, 13-3.
13-3, but they're going to be without Ezekiel Elliott for 6 games. And, does Dak Prescott have a sophomore slump? Do the Cowboys get to a 13-win plateau again? I don't think so. I still think they're pretty good, but I don't think they're getting 13 wins.
I've got these guys. Every year we have a team that had a good year the season before that kind of falls on hard times the next year. For me, that team is the Cowboys this year. I don't see them coming anywhere close to 13 wins. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see them fall into the 8-8, 7-9 range, and I'm not kidding when I say that. I really think they're going to be a real candidate for regression this year.
Well, but why is that?
Just because Dak Prescott, a second season, teams are going to have a better idea of how he plays. They're going to be able to game plan for him better. Elliott's going to be out for 6 weeks. And everything about the Cowboys that was new this year last year is not new this year. I'm not saying that they will go 7-9, but I just don't see them repeating last year's success. I just don't. I could be wrong on that, but I just think they're going to be a team that regresses a bit.
I agree with that. I think 7 and I think 7-9 is probably the bottom of where they'll end up. I see them kind of somewhere around that 500 number. That being said, I do think that'll end up. I still think that'll be good enough for them because the rest of the division doesn't really impress me. So this may be one of those years where you can go 8-8 and still make. And still win the division.
I don't see. I think they're going to regress a little bit, but I don't think they're going to fall as far as that. I put them around 10 or 9 wins, just because I really thought that last year wasn't a fluke, and that yes, you're not going to have Ezekiel Elliott, which was a huge key for them to be able to run the ball like they did and take the pressure off of Dak Prescott. But he's still going to be there for the other 10 games.
What you've got to consider with the Cowboys this year is that they're not going to have the schedule they had last year. This year they play a first-place schedule. They're going to be without Elliott for 6 games. You look at it, if they go, say, 3-3 in those first 6 games without him, that changes the entire complexion of their whole season, I think. I don't know, maybe 7-9 might be pushing it a bit much, but I'm with you, Zach. I don't see, 10, 9 wins probably at best. Maybe 11 if things go really well, but I just don't see it with them.
as I'm looking at it, those 6 games aren't the most difficult things in the world. They open up with the Giants on Sunday Night Football, as they always friggin' do.
And I think the Giants are going to, just speaking of that, are a much improved team this year. I like them a lot this season. But go ahead.
Then they're at the Broncos, at the Cardinals, home against the Rams, home against the Packers, and at the 49ers.
Okay.
Rams are a win. 49ers are a win. Broncos should be a win. That's 3.
Yeah.
Right? And then if you just, and that's in the 6 games without them. And then if you win 7 out of those next 10, that's 10 wins.
Okay, where are we picking up at? Okay, so then they've got the Chiefs, Redskins, Raiders.
Well, yeah.
I'm looking at the Giants here. I'm sorry, I got the wrong schedule. Hold on a second.
Yeah. It's Giants at Broncos, at Cardinals, home Rams, home Packers, at Niners. That's your first 6.
Okay, then you got the Redskins, Chiefs, Falcons, Eagles, a good Chargers team, Redskins, Giants, Raiders. I just don't see it. I could be way off base, but I don't see this team as being what they were last year. They're going to have a really tough time winning this division.
I don't know. I like them. I think it is going to be a tough time to win the division because I do agree with you in the New York Giants, the next team on the list, who did make the playoffs. They were 11-5 last year. They went under the radar for a long stretch, but they won 11 games. And, Eli was back to form. If they have the passing attack with Beckham Jr., they seem to have kind of figured themselves out a little bit better. So I do like the Giants to fight with the Cowboys for that division again. And I mean, the 2 games against them are going to be the hugest or the biggest games for both teams all year is the opening week game that they'll really set the tone for both teams. And then they don't play again until, week 14 at the end of the year. So that game in Giants Stadium, December 10th, that's the big one for division stuff.
To me, the Giants, the defense got a lot better. Eli Manning, no matter what you think of him, he's a very serviceable quarterback. I don't know if I'd put him quite in the elite category, but then again, you could make the argument that he is right there. He's got the team's always competitive. This is going to be a tough division because every team in here, I think even Washington, is pretty good. And you look at each one of these teams has to play the other teams in their division twice. So they've got 6 games against teams that are all capable of beating them. And I could see this thing coming out where a 10-6 season is more than enough to win this division. But I like the Giants better than the Cowboys this year.
The Giants really don't impress me. They've been competing for years, yeah, but I just get the sense that they're kind of on the downward end of that.
Yeah, they don't impress me either, Mike. But I think that they can be good enough. I don't think they're going to be Super Bowl contenders in this conference, but they'll fight for the division. I think at the very least,
they will. But I don't know. I guess I just disagree, Greg, with the idea that it's a tough division. I guess it's a tough division in that they're all going to be kind of a bit middling, but.
That's what I mean, though. You take a 4-team division that are all 8-8 capable teams. They're going to beat hell out of each other, and that's why I don't see any of them rising above the pack and getting up into the upper echelon where they're at the 12-13 win level because they're going to beat up on each other. And it's really going to, for each one of these teams, it really comes down to what they do with the rest of their schedule for the remainder of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Here, let me pull up the Giants stuff here. This is always just such a weird division too, because as we said, they do beat up on each other a lot. But and the Giants go under the radar. They always do because we think, oh, Eli's not really that good, or it's just him trying to throw to Odell Beckham, and who knows what the defense is. They can't run the ball that great. And then they go ahead and win 11 games like they did last year. I think they're a good team. They're good, and they can compete for the division, but they're not going to be competing for the conference title, I don't think. I don't think that's something that's in their future.
No, I don't think so either, but I think they will win the division. And the big key for the Giants, which will separate them from either barely 10-6 to possibly winning 11 or 12 games, if they can put together a running game,
Yeah.
Well, then that takes the pressure off Beckham. It opens everything up. But that's their big weakness is their lack of a running game. If they can get a decent running game together, because the defense is good, the passing game, they've got Beckham, they signed Brandon Marshall. Eli Manning, I think, is a pretty good quarterback. And to me, if they run the ball well, that makes them the favorites in the division. It's a weird division. Like you said, it gets talked about a lot more than, we're doing it ourselves right now, giving it probably a lot more attention than it warrants. But for some reason, there's something about this division where you look at that, I look at it and I go, I don't see any of these teams being like 5-11 bad. Do you guys? I don't see them being 12-4 good either, but they're right in the middle there.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Eagles.
Well, see, I think they're going to be pretty good too. But that's more of a gut feeling. I really can't back that up with any kind of.
Well, with the Eagles, the whole Wentz experiment, he kind of regressed. He didn't even regress after like say what you will about Dak Prescott, but at least he lit the league up for one full season. Wentz just kind of fell back down to earth after 5 games?
Yeah,
the
he
Eagles
came out of the gate strong
5-1.
Yeah,
the Eagles started 5-1 and ended up 7-9, and Wentz got just steadily worse as the season went along, which is not something you're supposed to do as a rookie quarterback. And if anything, you're supposed to steadily get better and pick things up as you learn. But he came out, had that surge, but teams figured him out pretty quick.
Yes.
And the rest of the Eagles weren't good enough to pick up any slack that he left behind.
Yeah, I don't know why I had it in my head that they were better than that last year, but they were only a 7-9 team last year. I had it in my head for some reason that they were in the thick of the playoff hunt, but they weren't. Yeah, and I forgot that Wentz had the regression. I'm thinking of the Eagles purely in the first 6 weeks terms from last year, but yeah, after that they weren't very good at all.
Yeah, no, I remember we did the same thing last year because they had just a good start, and in my head it was always, maybe the Rams made the wrong pick. Carson Wentz was obviously the better quarterback to pick.
Not that Goff is a particularly good pick, but
no, but I thought the way that it had been made out after a couple of weeks was, Carson Wentz was clearly the better quarterback.
At week 4 or 5 last year, it sure looked like Wentz was the better pick. Now, I don't know. He could turn around and he could put it back together again this year. We really don't know what we've got with Jared Goff. So right now, I don't know that necessarily I can say that Carson Wentz was definitely the better pick, like we would have said 3 weeks into the season last year.
The key for the Eagles, at least last year, based on the record, they were 6-2 at home. They were 1-7 on the road.
Wow.
That's your difference with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay, I'm gonna retract what I said. I'm not so sure about the Eagles now. All of a sudden, I was making them like my trendy pick. These are going to be the guys that surprise everybody, but I don't think so now. I'm looking at them and going, okay, maybe they are the 5-11 team in this group.
I think if there's a team of this group that will surprise, it might just be the Redskins. They're a team that the collective we, always like to kind of bury pretty early and say, well, maybe they're really not that good.
It's the Dan Snyder thing. Anytime this team gets on the tracks, it's just like, it's just a matter of time before Dan Snyder does something to fuck it up.
Yep.
Yeah, but they were in the hunt for that final playoff spot going into the last week of the season. Kirk Cousins continues to get those franchise tags every year, which he'll take. He's making a shit ton more money than he would by signing an actual contract.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny to think about.
But that's the thing, though, with Kirk Cousins. He's had flashes where you go, this guy's pretty good. And I look at him and, okay, you take away the top 10, let's say the top 8 quarterbacks in the league. Who do you like better after that? After, say, Rodgers and Brady and who are some of the other big names? Say Russell Wilson, those guys. Who do you like better than Kirk Cousins?
Kirk Cousins is good.
He's been pretty good, right? Andy Dalton or Kirk Cousins, who do you take? I think I would be a coin flip on that.
Yeah, I like that. Mm-hmm. You like that. Kirk Cousins likes that.
Yeah, like you said, though, that franchise tag, he's cashing in without really doing anything.
Right. It's just, he gets the average salaries, and when you get these guys like the Matt Stafford contract that he just signed, yeah, sure, Kirk Cousins will take an average of all those guys' salaries. Sure, fine.
But, yeah, I think Washington is a team that it's going to be – I don't know. They, predictions have them in the 7, 9, 8, and 8 range, which sounds about right. But they're one of those teams that, and we're going to say this a lot as the season progresses, but if a couple things go their way, they could end up with 10 wins. But if a couple things don't go their way, they could be 6 and 10. And to me, that's that entire division. The Cowboys and Giants maybe have a bigger margin for error, but you look at a Washington, and I guess we're going to write out Philadelphia early, but it's that whole division to me is a division of if you beat the teams you're supposed to beat and you get a couple breaks, you could end up in a good spot. But
which is why those early divisional games are going to be so important, because you got to get them in the bank as quickly as you can. Because if there's a log jam at 8-8 or 9-7, you want those divisional victories.
Yes, exactly.
I like Kirk Cousins. The receiving core is okay. The running game's pretty decent, and the defense is not half bad either. It's a competitive team. Right. It really is. It's a team that could do some stuff. Again, not like world-beating heights. 8-8 is a good middle ground for them, but things could go right, and they could finish 9-7. They could go wrong, and they could finish 7-9. But I think their highs and their lows are not too far apart from each other.
But just real quick with these guys, then we can decide who we like and move on. Did anybody see the emergence of Terrell Pryor as a good wide receiver coming down the road? I mean, I would have never guessed in a million years, but he's because he's with Washington now, and I think he's a good target for Kirk Cousins. But I don't know what to make of these guys, and it's the same thing with this team and this whole division every year. But I'm going to say the Giants win the division, and I don't think we get a wild card out of this group. I think it's whoever wins the division. That's going to be the only playoff team you get out of the NFC East.
I think. I'll say Cowboys win the division again, and Giants get the wild card again. But I mean, you look at the rest of the NFC. Maybe you get two out of the South. Maybe you get two out of the South. It's going to be competitive for the wild card spots in the NFC, just as they are for the AFC, but for completely different reasons.
Right.
The AFC is competitive because there's so many teams that just aren't that great, and somebody needs to take those spots. In the NFC, the wild card spots are competitive because there's plenty of good teams that are going to be fighting each other for those spots. Move on to the NFC Norris division. The NFC North, home to your Green Bay Packers, Greg.
Indeed.
The division champions, 10-6 last year. A team that is still being, pulled by its nostrils by Aaron Rodgers, and being pulled in one direction by Aaron Rodgers and being dragged down the other direction by Mike McCarthy. And the Packers are always a hard team to read. They're going to be good simply because of Aaron Rodgers. End of statement. They're going to win games. They're the favorites in the division again, and why shouldn't they be? Because of him. But in terms of their long-term successes, are they going to have to outscore teams again? Or are they going to have a running game this time? Is Aaron Rodgers going to be protected up front? What sort of team is this if he does get injured? Packers, but it's Aaron Rodgers first and foremost, and then what else helps this team win or lose games?
If he gets injured, what team are they? They're the Cleveland Browns with better uniforms. That's what they are without Aaron Rodgers. It's the same old question with them every year. If the defense and really in the secondary is where they need the most help. I think the line's pretty good. The linebacking core is solid, but the secondary just got smoked a lot last year. They've tried to improve that with the draft this year. But yeah, running game and secondary, those are the big question marks for the Packers. They're going to score a lot of points. He's going to put up a lot of big numbers. You got Jordy Nelson. You've got Randall, don't call me Tex Cobb. Devontae Adams has turned out to be a pretty good receiver. They got a good receiving core. One of the best quarterbacks in the league, and a lot of question marks after that. That's the Packers in a nutshell. And it just depends. I mean, if they can if they can put together a good defense, they're a Super Bowl winning team, I think. But that's the question, and that's been the question for them. However long we've been doing this, that's what we've been asking about these guys, and I don't understand why they can't seem to ever address it. And, of course, you've got the Kirk Cousins of NFL coaches, which would be Mike McCarthy, I don't understand that either. This guy is, I don't know if they win in spite of him or what the story is, but I think he should have gotten fired a couple of years ago. Anyway.
Well, I think he's obviously coasted off the success that Aaron Rodgers has provided. Yeah, they always look like they're just not able or unwilling to take the next step and to improve their team beyond Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't say that they are the Cleveland Browns if Rodgers goes down, but I will say that the team they remind me of when we talked about it last time when we discussed the AFC, they're the Colts, I think, if Aaron Rodgers goes down.
They remind me a lot of the Colts in that respect, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is a team that has an elite talent at quarterback. That's going to get them far. I'd say that due to a number of circumstances, it's probably better, probably because Andrew Luck, as good as he is, isn't quite Aaron Rodgers, at least not yet. So I think Aaron Rodgers can get his team further than Andrew Luck can all by his lonesome. But this is a team that just does not have what it takes, I think, you think this team should have at least one other Super Bowl during the reign of Aaron Rodgers, and they don't. And I think that's just because they're just not a deep team. You can get to the playoffs, you can even win a playoff game or two, but you are not going to go far. You're not going to get past the real world beaters if all you have is a quarterback. Obviously, in the current NFL, you need a quarterback to do well, and you need a good quarterback to win you Super Bowls, but you also need a bit more than that. And the Packers just don't have that bit more. And I don't think they will under the current management.
When they got that win in Dallas last year in the playoffs, it took everything they had to win that game, and they still barely won it. Mm-hmm. And they played probably one of the best games they had played all season. Rodgers makes a couple of miraculous plays, and they barely get out of there with a win. And you kind of knew right then and there, yes, they'd beaten the Cowboys, who I think had home field throughout, didn't they, last year?
Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
So it was a huge win for him, but I didn't walk away from that going, one game away from the Super Bowl. I thought, oh, my God, how did they manage that? And that's what it comes down to. You're right. They're like the premium version of the Colts. You've got the Colts who have a quarterback and don't seem to know how to put the rest of the team around him. The Packers are the high-dollar version of that. They've got a better receiving core, but really there are a lot of similarities between the two. It's a team that seems to want to ride the quarterback more than it should, and that's going to be the difference. That's why I think if Minnesota has any kind of offense, I think the Packers have a tough time even winning that division this year.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers got hot at the right time at the end of last year, if you remember, with the win streak, and then just kind of ran out of gas. And when they went to go play the Falcons were just at that next level that the Packers just couldn't get to that gear anymore.
Well, it just so happened that they got hot in the regular season last year. It was around the same time that I think Minnesota started falling off a cliff.
Yeah,
because Minnesota had a strong start last season. Who was their quarterback last year?
Sam Bradford.
Sam Bradford, right. And it shocked everyone that they were actually winning games, but that obviously didn't last.
It's an interesting thing. And I know it almost seems to me like the worm might be turning on Aaron Rodgers in terms of like people's opinion of him. Not that he's not good, but I mean, at the very least, I think his recent stint of being very like his personality's taken a weird turn, if you know what I mean, where it feels like he's a little bit more standoffish. He just feels like he's trying to play up the sarcasm and everybody's got to relax, not a big deal, nobody cares. And he's almost taking on like Jay Cutler-esque qualities, which isn't a good thing. But obviously still talented. 13th season in the league, still only 33. He's not an old guy.
Yeah, but I'm with Mike. They should have had at least one more Super Bowl win, and that window's closing, whether we want to admit it or not. There's he's 33 now, and before you know it, he's closing in on 40, and they've still only got the one Super Bowl win. And this team, to me, they just should have been better than they've been, especially when you've got one of the all-time greats at quarterback. You should be able to do more than this. And
with Aaron Rodgers kind of becoming a smartass, I don't blame him, considering, he more than anyone, I think, knows how much this team's kind of failed to put pieces around him to succeed. So, we see him go in there season after season and kind of drag the Packers to relevancy, and I got to imagine he's the guy doing it in the trenches. He knows, and I would be shocked if he wasn't at least a little bit frustrated with
Oh,
what
I think
he
you started
knows
seeing
going on.
You started seeing it last year, and he never really came out and said it. But you could see last year that he was getting pretty frustrated with the coaching staff of this team. And I can't blame him a bit. I don't know that I'd even I think Andy Reid wins another Super Bowl with this group. You take the same personnel with Andy Reid as a coach, and I think they win. Mike McCarthy is an idiot. Is the best way to put it.
Unfortunately for Packers fans, he does have that Super Bowl title.
Yep.
And we all saw how far Jeff Fisher got losing a Super Bowl.
Yep.
So, Mike McCarthy actually won one, so he's not saying he's going to be the Packers coach for the rest of his NFL coaching career, but I think we're going to have to tolerate Mike McCarthy for a while now because we're not even 10 years after that title. So
no, and
he's with us for a while.
I think that he's taken that ring that they won and really has managed to get people to look the other way when it comes to his inadequacies because I don't think the guy's a good coach.
He and Mike Keenan can get together for drinks.
Right.
The Packers have a tough schedule, I think. And the interesting thing to me, I think we'll know a lot about the Packers in the first 2 weeks of the season. They host the Seahawks and they're at the Falcons.
Yeah.
Those are two teams that you need to prove yourself against, especially in that NFC. And they're at the Cowboys later this year. They play the Steelers. They play the Buccaneers. This is a team. They're at the Panthers too. They're going to have plenty of tests to prove themselves this season, and they could get pretty beat up by the end of it. But we'll see on that. Next on the list, they had a wild card game, out of nowhere last season was the Detroit Lions, who, while the Vikings were slipping and the Packers had their early struggles, the Lions were the ones that ended up on top of the heap for a minute before the Packers had that surge and knocked the Lions off by a game. The Lions are, again, another team that's kind of defined by their quarterback. It's all about Matt Stafford. It's all about that passing game. Matt Stafford gets this huge contract to be the highest paid quarterback in the league. I don't know so much about that, but this is another team where there's so many questions that I don't even know where to start beyond knowing that, hey, this is Matt Stafford's team, but what does the rest of it provide?
Well, they're kind of the Washington Redskins of the NFC North. They're the team that can go in either direction pretty quick. Sports Illustrated's got them going 5-11 this year, so they don't have a lot of faith in the Lions at all. I don't know if I'd go that far.
I mean, we've seen it wasn't long ago, it wasn't so long ago that the Packers not the Packers, but the Lions had that resurgence where after that 0-18 season, they got better a bit year by year, and then finally they made the playoffs that one year, and it was this huge deal. And then then everyone thought, oh, the Lions are here to stay, and then they regressed a bit, and then they slowly kind of built their way back up, and they surprised everyone last year of a playoff berth. And honestly, probably should have beat that. They probably should have beat the Cowboys in that first game. But they played it. Or did they play the Cowboys? I forget. No.
Who they play? I don't remember now. But
I don't know. I got the distinct feel. For some reason, I thought that maybe they got screwed. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
No, I know the game you're referring to, though. I know what you're talking about. I just can't think of who it was either.
Or maybe they played the Cowboys a few seasons back and they lost in screwy fashion. Anyway, regardless, this team over the past couple of years has been, one step forward, two steps back. And they took their one step forward last year, and I think we're in for another season or two of mediocrity before they somehow managed to pull themselves back together.
Last year, the Lions lost to the Seahawks in the wild card game, 26-6. Not a great performance by the Lions.
Gotcha.
That one. Yeah, it was 2 years ago with the crazy Dallas game.
Yeah, that's the game they should have won.
Yeah.
This is a team that the window seemed to crack open for a minute. They looked like they were going to slide through, and then it closed right up. I think we talked about it on the football show last year, how remarkably quick the whole thing transpired. Where you thought, oh, here come the Lions, then okay, probably not. And that was it. Then I don't know where they're going to be this year. I don't know if they're 5-11 bad.
I don't know. I do like their defense, and Matt Stafford makes up for a lot of deficiencies on offense. But I don't know. It's hard. It's just hard to tell. This is one of those teams that has to go out and prove it on the field to make anything worth it.
Yeah, I mean, they were 9-7 last year. I don't know. I don't see them dropping off. Sports Illustrated's got them at 5-11. I don't know if they're going to drop that far. But yeah, they got the new uniforms, which I liked at first, and now I'm not so crazy about. Other than that, I don't know what to say about them. We'll see. They're like I said, Washington Redskins of the NFC North to me.
The whole uniforms actually kind of match perfectly what I think of them in general, which is like, you know,
right?
It's fine, I guess, but could be better.
Yeah.
The other team that was right behind them, and it was a very tight top three last year, was the Minnesota Vikings. As we said, they had a great start and they fell off late as they got beat up as the season went along. The Vikings did. Not Matt Stafford. Sam Bradford had a career resurgence somehow, and just completed passes all over the field like it was his job, like he's supposed to do. But the team slipped as the season went along, and I don't feel great about this Vikings team anymore. I did a couple of years ago when they made the playoffs and they had Teddy Bridgewater, and it was like, okay, this is a team that's on the rise. They're fixing themselves, but Bridgewater still hasn't come back, and they're relying on Sam Bradford, and I think it's just a lot of parts thrown together here that I don't have as much faith in as I do even the Lions.
You said it best, relying on Sam Bradford. That's not a position you want to be in.
Nope. That's the trick. He's a serviceable quarterback. He's not bad, but you got to keep him upright. You got to keep him healthy, and that's been a big issue with him over his career. And I'm not comfortable if I'm a Vikings fan going, our Super Bowl hopes and playoff aspirations ride on Sam Bradford. No, I know they've got a good defense and they've got some talent on offense here and there, but is that enough to take them to a division title? I mean, that's the question.
No, it's not. I've got this team, like, I think they're going to be comfortably in that third place. I don't think the Lions are making the playoffs, but I do think they'll come in second to the Packers, and then.
Yeah, so, I'm looking at like some of the players and stuff. I don't see anybody on here that really scares me to death.
On offense, the guy I'm interested to see for them is their second round pick, Dalvin Cook out of Florida State, because he's a guy that has to come in and replace Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
And college Dalvin Cook had the skills. He was a very, very good running back, and he'll be important because if you can't run the ball and you can just key in on Sam Bradford all day, good luck. Good luck doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bradford's not a guy that can rise above no running game and just beat you to death with his passing game. That's not going to happen. I don't know, man. I don't know what to make of these guys. But you look at the rest of the division, you think, okay, besides the Packers, who's better than they are? I don't know.
And the only other team would be the Lions, because for one thing, it sure as hell ain't going to be the Bears.
Oh, see, no, I think the Bears are going to be much improved this year. I really do. Not playoff good, but they're going to be. It's not going to be the disaster that it was last year.
They might be improved, but I don't know how much farther they're going to move up. This team was obviously garbage last year. Their draft was fine. They get Mitchell, I love tits, Trubisky.
It's Mitchell, not Mitch, I love tits, Trubisky.
Right. But they drafted him, of course, after throwing a ton of money at Mike Glennon, of all people.
Yeah.
The ESPN depth chart currently lists Trubisky as the third stringer behind Mark Sanchez and Mike Glennon.
That's not
really
surprising me. That's not surprisingly considering that Trubisky didn't even know what a hard count was.
Yeah.
So.
See, Mike Glenn is an interesting case to me. He's a guy that was pretty good.
$15 million? He's good, but is he $15 million?
No, but those are $15 million desperate dollars that the Bears shelled out last year because they had to do something. And he was there. But was he from North Carolina State, right?
He was there.
He showed some flashes when he was with Tampa. I didn't think it was. I don't know if it was a $15 million investment, but I didn't think it was a bad idea to roll the dice on the guy. I think they spent way too much money to do so. But I don't know, man. This Bears team, and then I'm like, what else do they have?
Offensively,
not a whole lot. Yeah.
Kyle Long's a great left guard. Running backs, Jordan Howard, Tarek Cohen.
Okay.
Wide receiver, Kendall Wright, Deontay Thompson, Kevin White. Like, they don't have a whole lot. Defensively, there's a little bit in the secondary, but again, not a whole lot to write home about. Is this team going to be 3-13? You would hope not. That maybe they improve a little bit, but at best, this is a 5-win team. I think at the very best, it's a 5-win team.
When I said improve, I was thinking they move up to the 5-11, 6-10 range.
The favorite has to be the Packers. Packers would be my pick here.
Same.
Packers all the way.
Next up on the list is your Super Bowl runners-up.
Oh, man.
No.
It was 28-3 in the third quarter. The Atlanta Falcons, 11-5 last season, made it to the Super Bowl, led the Patriots 28-3 with less than 5 minutes remaining in the third quarter, and lost the first ever Super Bowl overtime to the Patriots in stunning fashion. This is a team that's mostly the same from last year in terms of the talent they have, and they obviously have a ton of talent with your Matt Ryans and your Julio Joneses. This is a team that's going to be opening up a brand new stadium right next door to the old one. I don't care what its actual name is. It's just going to be the Metallic Butthole for as long as it's in operation. Because for those who don't know, the roof opens and closes just like a sphincter kind of does. It doesn't just. It's not like a traditional roof where it opens side to side.
No, it kind of twists open.
It twists in circles. But the roof is actually broken. Not broken. Its opening function isn't allowed to function quite yet.
That sounds broken to me.
Yeah, I would say that's broken.
It wasn't completed on time, and so according to the people that are building it, it typically takes 40 days to, quote, mechanize such a roof after its last construction move. And back at the end of July, when the story was printed, 3 more construction moves were scheduled in the coming weeks, and the 40-day clock won't even begin until after those moves, and the process could take longer than the 40 days because of how many events are going on in the stadium in the next couple months, including some college football games over the weekend. Excuse me. And excuse me again. All the college football events over the weekend and the upcoming Falcons games. So, not to mention the Atlanta United FC, the newest addition to Major League Soccer.
Yeah, that'll be.
Well, I don't know why they're worried about it. These places never open the roofs anyway. Especially
Sky Dome does.
Sky Dome does, right? But in the NFL, you never see the roof open.
Well, I know, like, the Arizona Cardinals are contractually obligated to open the roof once a season.
Really?
Yeah, they have to have it open for one game every season.
Good.
It's in the stadium lease somewhere. So who knows if the Falcons will actually do it. But, yeah. So what are your thoughts? I know we've talked about the Falcons plenty over the last several months and in the immediate aftermath. What do you think of the Falcons' ability to rebound after the most epic collapse in Super Bowl history?
Dare I say sports history? To quote the YouTube channel Urinating Tree, a 12 on the Cleveland scale.
That's saying something, folks.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Pretty good.
That's the big question. If they can rebound from last year, they're going to be very good. But do they rebound from last year?
I actually think they do. I have a little bit of faith in these Falcons. They were just such an unstoppable offensive force last year. It just seems hard for me to think that they'll internally combust and not be just as good, at least in the regular season, as they were a year ago. What they do in the playoffs is an entirely different animal, of course, but and the rest of the division is a little bit better than it was a year ago. But I got to think the Falcons are still just as good as a year ago, at least in terms of offensive production and what they'll do regular season wise.
And the young defense is a year more experienced, probably going to be better. I mean, they certainly got the pieces in place to be a very, very good football team, but wow, we've brought it up numerous times. It's the Keith Olbermann thing the Seahawks haven't been able to overcome it, and they didn't collapse in near the fashion the Falcons did.
No, exactly. And that's where I think this is going to get interesting. Because the Seahawks, I think, they're not the only example, but they're the most recent example of you have this heart-wrenching loss. And did the team turn to crap? No. I mean, I don't think they've missed the playoffs yet since then. They're always in the hunt, but you still hear, like, to this day, I think, Greg, it wasn't too long ago that you sent me a text, link to a story where it's like why, and this was this past off season, why the Seahawks still can't get over that loss, and why you still have some people on the team who are blaming the quarterback and the coaching staff, and it's just completely, this team hasn't gotten over what happened. And so I don't think the Falcons are going to turn to complete garbage by any stretch of the imagination, but this is going to be a team that they're never going to be able to get over what happened. And that's not going to, unless something goes horribly wrong, they're not going to completely fall off the face of the earth. But this is going to be one of those teams where you start going, well, they were never quite the same after that, were they?
Think about it. If they're up, say, 28-10 in a regular season game and somebody scores, you're always going to have that here we go again possibility in your head. And I think that makes a big difference. I would love to see them continue and pick up where they left off. Well, not necessarily where they left off last year, but be able to stay good and maybe come back and win a Super Bowl. But we've talked about it before. The only thing that removes the stain of what happened to them last year is going out and winning the Super Bowl. Anything short of that is not going to be enough. That's what they have to do. And I don't know that they can do that. I hope so. But if I had to bet on it right now, I think you're right, Mike. I think they're going to be a decent team, but I wouldn't be putting up any Super Bowl tickets just out if I were a Falcons fan.
I don't think I'd be putting up Super Bowl tickets quite yet either, because once you get to that point, like I said, it's going to be a completely different animal. But I see no reason why they couldn't go 11-5 again. I see no reason why they couldn't win the division and do it all with the offense that they've shown in the last year or two. It just seems like that offense was so good last year that it seems impossible to me that they can't not repeat at least that sort of production, that it's going to get in their heads that much that they can't, score touchdowns on a weekly basis.
I think if you look at them on paper and just based on talent alone, they're the best team in the NFC, top to bottom. But there's such an X factor with what happened to them last year. And we could be wrong, but as we just talked about a second ago, the Seattle Seahawks kind of lend credence to the theory that teams don't get over a loss like that. So that's really what it boils down to. They've certainly got the talent to be the best team in the NFC. It's just a matter of if they can put it together and get past what happened last year. I hope they do. I think they win this division, but I just don't know how much that's going to affect them. Go ahead, Mike.
And the problem is that the only way that they get over this, I mean, it's a pretty steep hill to climb. It's not like this team doesn't get over it if they win the division. They don't get over it, if they win a couple playoff games. They don't even get over it if they make it to the Super Bowl and lose. Like, they've got to win the Super Bowl to really kind of expunge those demons.
Right.
So, this might be a situation. God help them if they lose in the playoffs as a result of a blown lead.
Oh, man.
They're in a very tricky situation, and it's not going to be a situation where they suddenly become bad, but this is kind of – we're at a point in Falcons history where unless they win now, this could be the start of a gradual but inevitable decline.
Just looking at the way they lost last year. If they had gone into that game and the Patriots won, say, 34-24, and it was just one of those things, okay, you can live with that. All right, we weren't ready yet. We'll be there next year. But, my God, 28-3 with less than 20 minutes to go in the game, and you lose. I don't know. We'll see. I think they're still the class of the division, though. I think that much is certain.
Yeah.
But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that if a couple things go wrong early, that could turn into an avalanche, and the next thing you know, we're all going, wow, what happened to them?
Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that was on the rise, a team that was in competition for a playoff spot. They were 9-7, just like the Lions, who took that last spot in the conference. Jameis Winston's a year older. This is a team that many got exposure to through Hard Knocks in the offseason.
They did Hard Knocks this year?
Yeah,
they've got billboards for it all over town.
I did not see a single episode of that this year. I don't have HBO anymore.
Don't feel bad. I live here and I didn't.
This is a team that
I like this team. I think these guys could surprise people.
Yeah, I think so too. I really do. Also, Winston's improved at quarterback, and Doug Martin's a pretty good running back. They actually have a nice little stable of running backs. Who else do they have? Deshaun Jackson comes in as a wide receiver for them. Mike Evans, still a receiver, is very good. So offensively, they're solid. On defense, they have a strong front. I like this team. I think this is the real threat to the Falcons in the division. I think the Saints might be improved a little bit, and I think the Panthers can't be anything more than improved from a year ago with the team that they still have. So I think the Buccaneers, though, are the real threat to overtaking the Falcons when it comes to the division standings.
Yeah, this group, the only thing I can say about the Buccaneers is that a team with uniforms this ugly shouldn't be allowed to be good, but they're going to be anyway.
This team, I think, is going to – I think they're going to get the one of the two NFC wild cards. They might even be able to steal the division, but it's a case where Atlanta – they're going to have their troubles. They're going to have their emotional issues. But unless things just utterly fall apart, I don't see them surrendering the divisional lead. And I see the Bucs as sort of that surefire team to get that number 2 slot and to, sneak into the playoffs. But the big question mark for me, and we'll get to them in a bit, though, is just Carolina, because Carolina could be a team that just outclasses Tampa, or it could be a team that completely just falls off the face of the earth. And well, we just don't know about that. So,
I think the Bucs are a playoff team too. Either they overtake Atlanta for the division, or they get the wild card. If they don't make the playoffs, this season's a disappointment for them.
I think so. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. They're a team too that they could surprise. They could be this year's Cowboys. I think they've got that kind of potential. But anything less than a playoff berth is a disappointment for these guys. It's a bad season for them. The one small note with the Buccaneers as well. Their opening game was supposed to be against the Dolphins in Miami, but because of Hurricane Irma coming in, the Dolphins-Buck game is not going to be played on Sunday. It will be played. It will either be played at a neutral site, which would be Pittsburgh or Philly. Or the other option is moving the game to Week 11, which is the shared bye week for both teams. But that would then make the teams play 16 straight weeks without a bye, which is something they want to avoid if possible. But I was going to make a joke they were going to move it to Milwaukee, just because that's where all these games go. And then you said Pittsburgh or Philly, and I thought, okay. Yeah, that Hurricane's that's kind of throwing a wrench in the gears here. I know that my brother lives in the Keys, and they're under mandatory evacuation down there. So that I don't know.
We almost got that in Tampa.
Yeah.
Earlier today it was we're going to be evacuated, and then later it was like maybe not, and so now it's just it's all up in the air. People just don't know what's happening with that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little hard to read, but the small potatoes of the football game being moved, supposedly that'll come down between when we talk and when this podcast comes out. So if you're listening to this, you already know the result. So next on the list is, not to talk about hurricanes, but it's a city that's been hit by them. New Orleans, the Saints, 7-9 a year ago. Their big story of the offseason was they brought in Adrian Peterson as a running back in behind Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Some nice draft picks. The first round pick was a cornerback, trying to improve that defense a little bit, which has always been kind of their Achilles heel. I think they're going to be a little bit better. I like Drew Brees. I like the stable of running backs they have with Mark Ingram and Adrian Peterson. Some decent wide receivers. They're going to score points like they have in the past. It's just a matter of whether or not this defense can stand up to them. They also got Manti Te'o on defense at middle linebacker. So it'll be an interesting season for these Saints. 7-9 a year ago, but I think this is a team that could go either way. They could either improve or things could blow up again. But I think with as good as Drew Brees is, I don't think they're going to implode so much as maybe repeat a 7-9 or something like that. But
these guys they're a cautionary tale for the Green Bay Packers and even the Indianapolis Colts.
Sure.
This is what happens to you when you rely too much on your quarterback, and that's been the Saints for the past 4 or 5 seasons. I don't see these guys winning the division. I don't think they're a playoff threat. They 8-8 at best, probably looking more like 5-11, 6-10. I don't think they're going to be very good. They'll score a lot of points. They're going to give up a lot of points. And with that division being as tough as it is, I just see them bringing up the rear in the whole thing.
Mike?
The Saints, big ball of mediocrity.
Yep.
Yeah, I think 8-8 is probably their ceiling too. The more that I think about it, maybe 9-7 if they're lucky, but I don't think that they're a playoff team. The only reason that they would be out of the bottom is if the Panthers somehow can't, get themselves aligned like they should. But yeah, they're interesting. Like bringing in Adrian Peterson, and having
I think that's just a dumb move on their part. He's over 30. Yeah.
That's a stunt signing.
Right. I can't think of a single running.
He's not going to be a compliment back.
Yeah, but still, it's just I can't think of a great running back of his stature that got to his age that ever moved to a different team and played well. It's always an Emmitt Smith with the Cardinals type deal, or Franco Harris with the Seahawks along those lines. It just never works. So yeah. I don't know what the point is. It's a roster spot you could have given to a young player that you could develop instead you're going to waste it on Adrian Peterson. And that's not a knock on Adrian Peterson, one of the best running backs ever, but he's done. It's just as simple as that.
The real question, of course, in the division is the Carolina Panthers. This is a team that just 2 years ago was in the Super Bowl.
Went 15-1.
Went 15-1, and then the very next year, they go 6-10 with pretty much the same team. Cam Newton is, still their leader and obviously a talented quarterback. They bring in Christian McCaffrey, who has looked pretty good in the preseason. We'll see how he comes in. Pure speed, and he's got the moves. I think unlike a lot of players like him, he might be able to translate to the NFL a bit better than other running backs in his ilk, like a Reggie Bush did. Offensively, they're going to be good. Defense is a question. Luke Kuechly is probably one more concussion away from death. They're interesting. The defense is kind of a mosh. It's not as good as it was 2 years ago by far. But offensively, I think this team's going to have the stuff to at least be a competitive team at the end of the day.
These guys, they shouldn't have gone 6-10 last year. I don't know what went off the rails for them, and now if everything goes right, they're good enough to win the division. I don't think they dropped off that much in talent, but I don't know what to make of these guys because a 15-1 to 6-10, that's a huge drop. We're talking a 9-game difference there, and with what have they changed? I mean, they brought back Julius Peppers, which I think is like Adrian Peterson. What was the point? The guy's the 20 seasons into his career and all that. But the Panthers, I don't know. I think with the Bucs and the Falcons, even if the Panthers improve a great deal from last year, they're still going to have a tough time breaking through into the top part of that division because they've just got the two teams in front of them are just better than they are. And so the Panthers, but I could see them This division might be one where you get 2 playoff teams because they've just got a lot of talent. The Saints bring up the rear, but the other 3, especially the Panthers, are just a weird. I don't know what to make of that with the drop off because they're better than this. They should be better this year. So they could be a third. 9-7 could be enough for a wild card. We'll see. Indeed,
I don't know. The Panthers, they confuse me. I don't understand. Right. I just don't. I don't get it. I think I have a theory which breaks in their favor, which is they went 15-1. They got a 15-1 schedule, regressed.
Yeah.
And, now they're going to get a 6-10 schedule. And,
that's true. That's a good point.
Maybe maybe that's not going to boost them back up to 15-1, but, this team, this is, I'm kind of wary whenever I say, like, oh, we're going to get 3 playoff teams from one division, because that rarely happens. But if any division has a chance of it happening, I think it's the NFC South. Assuming that the Bucks live up to potential and the Panthers get their heads on straight.
Yeah,
I agree with that too. When it comes to having 3 teams in a division, take that spot away from the NFC East and maybe give it to them. But I think for sure the playoff teams have to be the Falcons and Bucks, and the Panthers are the team that could really make this thing interesting, kind of throw a wrench into it if they get their heads on straight, which they definitely could. Like we said, they were 15-1 2 years ago. It's not like things change quickly in the NFL, but that one was just a little too weird of how fast it went away. Because Cam Newton didn't drop off a cliff or anything. Things just didn't work. They got some bad injuries here and there, some bad luck overall. Just, I don't know.
Well, and you talk about how quickly things change in the NFL. Let's not forget, too, that 3 years ago, the Panthers won that division going 7-8-1.
Right.
And what a dumpster fire this division was like 3 years ago, and now we're talking maybe 2 playoff teams out of it.
I just remember that as being the year that your Bucks prediction was technically correct, because at 1-9 they were still in it.
Yeah, I wasn't wrong.
You give us crap, Mike. You always have, but it's not an incorrect statement.
Right, we were right about that.
It was week 13, and we looked at the in the hunt graphic. So I felt vindicated.
This might make me a bad fan, but those are the seasons I root for. Just for, I root for a sub 500 divisional champion. I will buy a hat for any divisional champion that goes 5-11. I'll buy that hat.
I'm going to go one further. 6-10, and I'm buying your hat and a jersey. And you're going to be my favorite team for a year if you do it.
The NFC West, our final division here, and oh boy, what a dumpster fire this one is. Congratulations on your division title, Seattle Seahawks. Don't even really have to step on the field, and I'll go ahead and give that one to you.
I'm not ready to do that just yet.
They'll lose both games to the Rams for a dumb reason.
Yeah, what is that?
They just have a thing. They just have a thing against them. I don't know what it is. But the Seahawks were 10-5 last year. They beat the Lions in a playoff game and then lost to the Falcons. 7-1 at home as they usually are. 3-4-1 on the road. A weird season for them. The 6-6 tie against the Cardinals.
Oh my God, that was one of the worst football games I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think that really set the game back at least like 76 years. Like
right.
That was a bad game. I can't believe I sat and watched the entirety of that nonsense.
That was the worst game I've seen since a game that I saw Monday Night Football back in the 80s, and I still remember it because Dandy Don Meredith made what I thought was one of the greatest quotes ever. When it was the Cardinals were playing the Giants, they were both terrible. The score was 20-20, and he said maybe justice will prevail and neither one of these teams will win. And that's what that game reminded me of last year. It's like neither one of you deserve to win this game. I don't want to see a tie, but they both couldn't lose, unfortunately.
Oh, if only NFL commentators were allowed to say stuff like that today.
Yeah,
I don't think that would go unpunished today. But yeah, that was a stupid game. This is a stupid division.
But yeah, the Seahawks are unfortunately the class of the division, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. When are these guys going to go away, for God's sakes? At least Russell Wilson. Come on. I'm just tired of this guy. I'm tired of this team.
Yeah. It'll be whenever Russell Wilson goes away. I mean, you still have him at quarterback. The running backs are okay. Thomas Rawls, Eddie Lacy's your backup. Doug Baldwin at receivers, all right. Decent receiver. Again, you look at all these positions, and the defense is the one that's still very good, and the offense is just decent.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow or another, they pull out enough wins to get through. You know, I remember it was either last year or the year before, and they had a rough start, and maybe the one's finally turning on them, but the rest of the division just isn't good enough to give them any sort of challenge, so they kind of work their way up to, at the very least, 9 wins, and win the division, because the rest of it's not good enough, and somebody has to. So,
right,
Seahawks probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at the Seahawks are gonna get it because Russell Wilson is fueled by the power of Seattle pride. Just look at that. Just look at this.
Oh no!
Is it him at a children's hospital?
No. It's him.
He's got his rocking his Sonics jacket. Look at him go.
Retro Sonics jacket, so you know it's legit.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
He probably had that in the trunk of his car, just waiting for that photo op, right?
Probably, because it doesn't go with anything else he's wearing.
No.
He's wearing jeans and a pink tie, for God's sake.
Oh, wow. But yeah, they're the best team, and probably, what do you think, after, like the Cardinals next, probably?
I guess, and the Cardinals aren't even that good.
No,
I mean,
this team the Cardinals are not a good team. Honestly, I put the Rams ahead of the Cardinals.
Really?
I don't know about that. I don't understand how they've allowed their quarterback situation to go unresolved. Why is Carson Palmer still the best option you have? Why is Drew Stanton still your backup quarterback? Why is Blaine Gabbert on your roster? They didn't draft anybody of significance. You know that Carson Palmer's at the end of his rope. They haven't even bothered trying to get somebody to groom and turn into the next generation and make sure this team stays somewhat competitive going forward. But, you know, this is a team that last season had big plans. You know, the defense looked good. Carson Palmer was healthy and they were going to be fine. And then that opening week loss to the Patriots, I remember it just seemed such a weird game for them to lose, but it really showed ultimately what this team was going to be last year, in the 7-8 and the 6-6 tie. And they were just such a, not even like completely dumpster fire where they were completely bad, but they were just this middling group of middling bad. Like, not bad enough to be completely bad and restart the whole thing, but they just kind of...
But don't you think they should be better than they are, though? When you look at the talent they have on the roster?
Maybe.
I think they should be better. I look at them and I go, why can't you guys be better than this? I mean, they need a quarterback, obviously. We've been talking about the Carson Palmer thing for 2 years now.
Yeah, especially because, you know, Larry Fitzgerald continues to do what he does, but man...
I thought he was going to retire after last year. I thought he was done.
No, he's back, and they're just wasting the end of his career. When they could get him, like, a decent quarterback that's worth a damn, they just haven't. Mm. And it's kind of a disservice to Larry Fitzgerald, who's been a real soldier there for such a long time.
I look at, I mean, they've got the running back, what's his name, David Johnson. Guys, great out receiver out of the backfield, good rusher. They've got a solid defense. You think they should be better than 7-8-1 or 8-8 or whatever they're going to be this year, but they're not going to be. And I look at them and I think, give them a good quarterback, and I think it makes a world of difference. I'm not saying Palmer's terrible or anything. It's just I don't know what it is. They need to be better than this. They should be better than this, but they're not, and I don't understand why. They've got talent, and they just can't seem to put it together. Didn't they go like 12-4 2 years ago, and we really had high hopes for them, and it's just not going to happen.
No. Like, you want to say that their ceiling is 8-8, but I don't even know if it's that. I mean, I guess that's their ceiling. I think I'm just more down on the record because I don't see a whole lot of future for this group.
Yeah.
Like, when does Carson Palmer finally go away?
When they drag him off the field on a stretcher from the injury he can't come back from. I mean, you talk about a guy that's been concussed nearly to death. Come on.
Yeah. He's in
This
his
team-
He's 37 years old, but it's, yes, okay, Tom Brady's played forever, but Carson Palmer's just not as good, and he's gone through a lot of injuries, as we said. He's a guy that should have just called it quits, Well, like you had a decent NFL career. People will remember you, Heisman Trophy winner. You got all that behind you. Just take the knee, man, and go off into that great beyond.
I'm going to say this team's ceiling is, and I'm talking about their ceiling, is 6-10.
You think they're going to be that bad, huh?
Yeah, I'm just not. And this is one of the teams I follow, so maybe I'm just being hypercritical, but basically everything Zach said, this team isn't built for the future. They were in a win now mode a few years back, and they didn't, and they never took the steps to sort of take the next step to rebuild after that. And so they've got talent. That'll win them some games. But I mean it. I wouldn't be shocked to see LA come out ahead of them.
Well, it could be.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the next team on the list is those Los Angeles Rams.
The only team in football that's wearing 4 different uniforms at the same time.
4-12 a year ago, a dismal 1-7 at home, and they're didn't exactly endear themselves to the re-welcoming home crowd. Jerry Goff is was supposed to improve over the offseason. He had a couple decent preseason games. His third one was pretty bad, so I still don't know what to expect there. The offensive line is what it is. They got to be able to get the first and foremost of this team. They have to get Todd Gurley able to run again. And as soon as they do that, then maybe it opens things up. It'll back people off Goff and give him some time, hopefully, to throw the ball. Because they actually have some decent receivers. This kid they drafted in the 3rd round, Cooper Kupp, I think he's going to be a breakout player for the Rams this year. A guy that you'll know his name by the end of the year and will know of him for a few years to come. He's been pretty good. But again, they also have a problem on defense. The defense was supposed to be the core of this team, but Aaron Donald, the best defensive tackle in the entire damn league, almost is holding out on a contract, and he hasn't been there through training camp and preseason, and
he'll be there on Sunday. Don't worry.
He's not. It's Tuesday, and they're not any closer to doing anything. So I doubt he's not going to be playing this week. At the very least.
Well, these guys are. What was it? The Goff last year during Hard Knocks, there was something he didn't know. It was, I forget what it was.
Where the sun rose and set.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to say it was gravity, but it was where the sun rises and sets.
Well, you've got that. You've also got the guy who believes in mermaids. So
don't we have a flat earther in that bunch too? I'm
sure there is. Every team's got one now.
So the Rams are an interesting team personality wise.
They I think Mike's right that if everything goes well for the Rams and the Cardinals, they could be better than the Cardinals, but I don't see them doing much more than maybe 7-9 at best. The Rams, it's just I don't know what to make of Goff.
I would take a 7-9. Like that would be an improvement, and I'd be like, okay, this team's going in the right direction.
And the best thing about this team is their helmets. That's what I have to say about them.
Yeah, the helmets look great, the pants look great, the socks look great. Stupid jerseys.
Yeah,
stupid jerseys. And the best part is, at some point, they're going to have to wear the blue jerseys, like in a road game somewhere. And those blue jerseys with the blue helmets are going to look even worse.
I just take the NFL fine and wear the throwbacks for that one game.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's for another day. And what do we got left here? Go ahead, Mike.
Just in terms of the Rams, I know a lot of money. Well, not a lot of assets were spent to get Goff, but. Not saying give up entirely, but it might be time to start planning for acquiring another quarterback somewhere down the line.
Already. Well, it's like we said last week. Was it last week where Or no, it was we were talking about Sam Darnold from USC, and Zach was like, how many draft picks does it take to get him or whatever? And you said however many they have at this point.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I mean, the kid, I don't have a lot of faith in him because if you don't know where the sun rises and sets, I'm not so sure I've got a lot of faith in your ability to figure out an NFL offense or read a defense. And that's the problem I have with him. He seems kind of like like a surfer party dude type guy. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't have a lot of faith in him. We'll see how it goes. Who's their backup, Zach? Is it still Mannion or?
Mannion is the regular backup. Yeah.
Whatever happened to Case Keenum? Is he gone now, or is he still with the Rams?
Oh no, he was. I saw him on one of the depth charts we were looking at. I forgot where he landed, but he's not a Ram anymore now.
How he stayed in that starting position? Like the Rams, I think could have salvaged.
He's a Minnesota Viking, Case Keenum.
I think the Rams could have salvaged last season. Not to the point where they made the playoffs or anything, but they could have salvaged it if they had moved on from Case Keenum.
Yeah, well, I think that was either a case of Jeff Fisher just being that stubborn and bullheaded, or he saw something in Goff and said, we're no better off with him. But that still doesn't excuse Mannion. Yeah, I was just going to say, it doesn't excuse why you don't give Mannion a shot. Yeah. So, and then let's move it along here and wrap it up with the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh boy, what a dumpster fire.
If any team's going to challenge the Jets this year for sheer ineptitude, it's going to be the 49ers.
Greg, can you name the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers?
No, when you said Blaine Gabbert was with I forget who, and I thought, well, okay, I don't know. No, who is it?
Brian Hoyer.
Oh, jeez.
Oh.
Poor old Brian Hoyer.
Their backup quarterback is a guy named C.J. Beathard.
C.J. Beathard. Didn't he play?
That's a name that the computer generates if you play Madden.
Madden. Right.
He's a rookie from Iowa.
Okay. Well, because those Iowa quarterbacks, long history of great Iowa quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah. This is a team that has they still have Joe Staley at left tackle. They have Carlos Hyde.
Carlos Hyde's a good running back, yeah.
Pierre Garçon is a decent wide receiver. But offensively, not a whole lot. I don't know why Brian Hoyer is there, but he is.
Okay, that's a good example. Does anybody think Brian Hoyer's better than Colin Kaepernick? Again, I'm not saying Colin Kaepernick's a great quarterback or anything, but come on, really?
Can't be worse, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it, but yeah, these guys could challenge the Jets.
They're pretty bad. Defensively, they've got not a whole lot, I don't think. Some names that I've heard of before but Navarro Bowman, there you go. There's a decent middle backer.
Great job blowing your team up over Harbaugh, assholes.
Yeah. Their new GM is John Lynch, so that's interesting.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Their new head coach is Kyle Shanahan of Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl blowing fame.
That was something I wanted to bring up about the Falcons back when we were talking about them, and since this is where he ended up, I don't know that having a new offensive coordinator is the worst thing for the Falcons after last year.
Yeah.
So that may help them.
Certainly can't hurt.
Right. But these guys, these 49ers, man, oh man, I mean, I think if they can get 4 wins, that'd be a really good season for them.
Yeah, they just don't have the talent anywhere. Their schedule is actually kind of rough. Yeah, good luck. Have fun.
Yeah.
Doing anything, San Francisco. The fight for the first overall pick is between the Niners and the Jets, probably. Maybe the Jaguars if they're really bad enough.
Yeah, I don't think the Jaguars are as bad as these two. I think the Jaguars will accidentally screw up and beat a couple of teams and knock themselves out of the running for the top pick.
But again, as we say for all those 3 teams, no matter who's at the bottom, they're all going to fall head over heels trying to get into one of those top couple spots to get Josh Rosen or Sam Darnold, because what do all 3 of those teams lack? A good quarterback.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know the Cardinals won't, even if they get to that point, they won't draft him because they have no interest in changing their quarterback situation.
Yeah, they'll probably draft a left guard or something.
Right. A kicker.
Yeah. Hey, they need a kicker because theirs is pretty garbage, too.
Ask Tampa how that works out, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a situation where they had one too many kickers, didn't they? And they cut, like the kid they drafted, they drafted a second-round kicker and cut him in the preseason.
Yeah.
Well, that's bad. I mean, when you got to cut your second-round draft pick, that means you screwed up your draft pretty bad.
Yeah, so, when your second-round draft pick's a kicker.
That alone is enough to show that it was screwed up. But, yeah, so we like, obviously, the Seahawks, and I don't see anybody putting together a wild card run out of this crew.
No. God, no. No. So who do we got as our NFC champion?
Mike?
That's that's tough. You know what? I'm going to say the Cowboys. I'm just going to go out on a limb. I'll just go with the Cowboys.
I think my Green Bay Packers did enough improving on defense this year to maybe make the difference. I got to go with my Packers to make the Super Bowl this year.
All right. Well, I will go with the Atlanta Falcons to set up a rematch with the Patriots and get the revenge.
I hope. I mean, if the Packers can't get there, I hope that's what happens.
Yeah, because we all picked the Patriots.
No, I picked the Steelers.
You did?
I got Steelers. So I got Steelers Packers, I think, for the third year in a row now. I picked that Super Bowl. I'll get it right one of these years.
Yeah, and I say the Falcons get the revenge, but we all know that that's not correct.
No. In fact, blowing that 25-point lead was probably the closest that Atlanta will ever get to beating New England in a Super Bowl. If it happens again, Brady's going to come out in Brady smash mode from the gate, and it'll just end in tears.
Here's a better question, I guess. What of these top NFC teams we've talked about, is there any one that stands up as a team that could beat the Patriots?
Packers have the offense to do it for sure.
Yeah, well, so do the Falcons. Yeah,
I'm gonna say the Cowboys again. Like Greg said, last year they were fun, and I picked them to regress a bit, and I still kind of stand by it. But I think to steal an NHL maxim, once you're in, anything can happen, and this Cowboys team, again, they're just fun. If they can put it all together, I think they could do something.
I think that maybe you're onto something there with the Cowboys, because at that point Ezekiel Elliott would still be with the team. And I think if you're gonna beat the Patriots, because what the Falcons thing was when they were up so big, but because of the way that their offense was, they just couldn't run the ball. Not that they couldn't run the ball, but just the way the offense is designed, it's designed to throw the ball. And so they said, well, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing because this is what has got us to where we were. They started throwing the ball. They got sacked. They fumbled. They couldn't complete passes. And all of a sudden the team starts coming back. Whereas if you're running the ball, you're controlling the clock. And you're controlling the possession and limiting the amount of opportunities that a team would have to come back on you.
Mm-hmm. See, I think their mistake too was that they, instead of saying, "Okay, we've got this big lead, let's get a little conservative here," they decided to keep the hammer down. Which, under normal circumstances, you say, "Yeah, you want to do that because we've seen it happen too many times." But it's the New England Patriots, and you've got them up against the wall like that. You want to start taking away clock and not letting them have any chances left. And I think that was a big mistake on the part of the Falcons. Yep. So, I like for the third year in a row, I think it's Steelers, Packers. We'll see. I got the Titans right finally, so this is bound to come through for me eventually. If I keep picking it, it'll happen eventually, right? That's our NFL preview.
God, this league is stupid.
And on that note,
we'll be here to talk about it every week.
We'll be here to talk about it every week, and we'll call it a night here. You know the routine. Follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports. Subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, and the YouTubes. And, of course, you can find us on Facebook. Go Packers. And Browns.
Go Chargers.
Go Rams. Ram it.
It was fiercely fought, but frightfully flawed. Let's take that over again. An original Raider, Wayne Harkins.
I got that wrong that time.
Wayne Harkins. Shoot now. Come on, John. Wayne Harkins. Yeah, I had it then. Wayne Harkins. No. Wayne Harkins. You stupid